Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, has arrived deep in the heart of Texas, Austin to be precise. The Lone Star State Capital has long been a hub for live music and great food, and has become a destination for race fans as well. Located 11 miles outside of Austin proper, Circuit of the Americas is a 20-turn, 3.5-mile homage to some of the great race courses from around the world. And this weekend it hosts rounds 5 and 6 of the North American season. Fanatec GT World Challenge America is one of 4 global SRO Fanatec GT championships with series in Asia, Australia, and Europe. This weekend at COTA marks the 3rd stop of a 7-weekend calendar, culminating in October in Indianapolis.
Howdy folks, welcome to the heart of Texas, where the spirit of the Wild West meets the thrill of GT racing. It's the 3rd event on the season for Fanatec GT, and our drivers, the best in the business, are ready to lasso one of the most unpredictable tracks in North America. SRO continues to operate across the globe, racing in Australia and in Asia, and our SRO Europe friends are racing in tandem with us this weekend at Misano in Italy. Speaking of those Italians, we have a 296 Ferrari as part of our expanded stable this weekend. That showcases 7 global manufacturers right here at the Circuit of the Americas. Yeehaw! With more entries, that means we're gonna have Texas-sized drama, the size of that tower we were just on. But the twists and turns here at the Circuit of Americas, they'll test the mettle of even your toughest cowgirl. The elevation changes, well, that'll have you feel like you're riding up and down on a runaway horse. But as we saw in Sonoma and Sebring, the new regulations that replaces the pit windows with minimum driver times, that makes that cowboy swap that much more important. As they say, don't squat with your spurs on. So who'll be all hat, no cattle this weekend, and who'll be tougher than a $2 steak? We have a real rodeo of a race here this weekend, where only the grittiest GT Wrangler will come out on top. Saddle up, folks, let's go racing in Austin.
Greetings and welcome to Austin, Texas, and Circuit of the Americas, home, of course, of the U.S. Grand Prix. And this weekend, home to Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. My name is Ryan Marine. You've already heard from Amanda Busick. Calvin Fish is alongside as we get ready to go racing for the first of 2 times here this weekend. It is a hot day in Central Texas, no doubt about it. Already 85 degrees Fahrenheit with track temperatures soaring upwards of 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius here at the moment. It's going to make for a challenge for so many of these drivers, but Calvin, I think the storylines coming in, newcomers to the championship, including one starting on overall pole.
Yeah, they're making an immediate impression with the AF Corsa back on our grids here. Agostani, a great pole position overall and in Pro-Am. And for a DXDT, they now have 2 of those Chevy Corvettes on the grid. Alec Udell taking the pro pole here for race 1 and 3rd overall. So really solid starts to both of those campaigns.
You heard Amanda allude to the change in regulations this year, which has seen a split in strategy available to these teams at the start of these races. It's all been regulator racing up to this point, employing that change in strategy, but this weekend, a few more teams opting to go that route.
Yes, they have. So certainly Agostini, he's the pro in the Pro-Am lineup there with Toledo, so he qualified the car this morning. He'll run right alongside Philip Ellis, who's been doing that regularly with the regulator racing team. They had a great battle in qualifying, separated by 300th of a second. Expect that battle to resume here once we get the green flag here this afternoon.
Should be a lot of fun, and we certainly expect fireworks every time we come here to this great circuit in Central Texas. Well, it is, of course, Fanatec GT World Challenge with an emphasis on the World Championships all across the globe, including racing this weekend in Italy at Misano, where we had some action already today. We'll take a look at some of the track activity in Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe. David Addison with highlights from race 1 at Misano.
All eyes were on Valentino Rossi before race 1 of Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup. His car was on pole position, started by Maxime Martin, and it led as the race got underway. The run down towards turn 1, putting the BMW ahead with a hard-charging Marvin Deans going from 4th up to 3rd, and then being able to squeeze up alongside Ben Green's Ferrari, putting him 2nd as Matthew Drudy got a tap from behind, and the Aston Martin was unsettled as the field turned its way around the hairpin for the first time. A great battle ensued, though, between Ben Green and Dries Vanthoor. Contact between the two ultimately opened the door. Vanthoor went by, the Emil Frey Racing Ferrari team unimpressed, but no action taken. So once ahead of the Ferrari, Vanthoor was able to keep on pushing as, further back, Jules Gounon pushed, but got himself a bit tangled up with Hugo de Wilde's Lamborghini. So when the pit window opened, it was Martin ahead of a hard-charging Marvin Deans. The BMW would hang on to its race lead. Deans relayed Philipp Zager, who was under attack for the Bronze Cup lead from Darren Look, although he would have a spin in the BMW that allowed the Porsche to come through victorious. All eyes then turned to what was going on up front with the WRT BMWs, because a nervous Maxime Martin was watching his car under attack. Valentino Rossi had been hunted down by Charles Weerts. The gap was coming down and down and down, and for lap after lap, Rossi was under massive pressure, but Weerts just could not make a move. And so, for a second career win in Fanatec GT, Valentino Rossi came across the line to win, and it was a delighted valet, a delighted and relieved Maxime Martin, and a very happy and very vocal crowd at Misano. Race 1 honours to Maxime Martin and Valentino Rossi.
The Doctor with a very popular win on home soil earlier today, and they'll have a night race coming up a little bit later on in the weekend. Well, that was certainly a memory to keep in mind, and we've got plenty of memories too here at Circuit of the Americas. Let's flash back to 2021. What a race this was. Race 2 of the weekend in 2021. A couple of K-Pax Racing teammates at the end. It was Jordan Pepper and Giovanni Venturini battling it out. Pepper in the black car leading the team car, which had not had much success up to that point in the season. A strange moment here when Pepper suddenly slowed down the backstretch that opened up the door for the team car to come through. Giovanni Venturini did exactly that, slicing through and taking the lead on the final circuit. It was a dramatic day, in fact, for K-Pax Racing. The black car was started by Andrea Caldarelli all the way back in 8th, fell back outside the top 10 at one point before fighting back, was brought into the mix with a full course yellow with 30 minutes to go in that race. Jordan Pepper went from 6th to the lead in just 4 laps and built a gap with 15 minutes to go, but saw that gap suddenly disappear as Venturini reeled him in, was able to close in and make the pass, as you saw on the final lap, and it was less than 0.3 of a second at the line back in race 2 of the weekend in 2021 here at Circuit of the Americas. The first win of the season for Venturini and Corey Lewis, and part of a championship bid for Jordan Pepper and Andrea Caldarelli. So many fun stories here this year in 2024, including newcomers to the grid. Amanda Busick has found one of them.
Oh, yeah, and you can see the activity heating up down here. You can still Nira Verhagen behind us putting on that race helmet. Alec Udell starting here today on the pole for the Plocrass. Coming up in the Corvette, we just talked that the mindset doesn't really change between qualifying and race, but what's different?
Yeah, so obviously we want to get the most out of the car, and that's different, of course, in qualifying than the race. But for me, it's just finding out what the car's like across the stint. You know, I'm learning every time and every lap in the car, and the DXDT guys have given me a great Corvette 06 GT3R, and so looking forward to spending more time in the car and just giving Tommy a good run to the finish.
Thank you, Alec. And my quick correction, that is Bill Oberlin getting into that BMW back there, Ryan.
And that's another team that's mixing up its strategy here this weekend at this wonderful Circuit of the America facility. This is a special track here, and let's get a first-hand look of what it takes to go fast around this place. Our Calvin Fish got to ride in the right seat alongside with Parker Thompson with our Fanatec track preview.
Welcome to the Fanatec GT track preview from Circuit of the Americas. We're on board the Toyota Supra safety car. I've got Parker Thompson here to drive me around this amazing facility, Toyota driver. And they say that everything is bigger and better in Texas. I look at this hill up into turn 1. It's amazing. There's an 11-degree incline here, over 100 feet of elevation change, Parker. And the GT3 cars are going about $145 into this turn-in point. How do you approach it?
Well, not only is everything bigger in Texas, but I think there's more pavement at this racetrack than there is in some states here in the United States.
It's incredible. I think they go 4 or 5 wide here at the start.
So, we'll take off. Turn 1, so much track, but I keep it simple. Brake at the 100 board, make sure you get down to the apex. There's all this track, but sometimes you use it, you lose it.
So many of the corners here are modeled after famous corners around the world for Grand Prix circuits. This is the center S we're coming into.
Flat out in our GT4 and GT3 cars, get prepped and start straddling the S's.
And this is like the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Beckett's, Chapel coming through here, just keeps coming at you.
Want to do everything you can to use all the track, but not get on the steward's bad side. Got to keep those lefts and rights on the candy canes.
Track limits are always a big consideration here at Circuit of the Americas. This is a corner of the apex. You really need to eat it up a little bit to open up your hands.
Flat out jump the car over, keep the left sides on, and you're through turn 8.
Been a lot of resurfacing here since last year we competed. What's the grip level like here down into turn 11? Really important corner.
Pretty tough. You got to focus on exit. It's so easy to overshoot the braking, but get the car squared up and get it out for the longest straight into turn 12.
This is 1 kilometer long, about 0.6 of a mile. Top speed going down at the next brake zone is going to be about 162 miles an hour. And that's where things really start to slow down. Great overtaking opportunity down to the inside.
All the passes are going to happen here this weekend, Calvin. This is where everybody goes under attack. Get to the 150, get it braked in, get your downshifts done, and look for that apex. Get her out.
Got to be so patient through here. Reminds me of the Hockenheim Stadium section over in Germany. Very technical.
So many lines you can take here, Calvin. Almost like driving in the wet. But I like to get it nice, tight, narrow, and focus on getting my exits.
Really low speed here, about 40 miles an hour, apex, and then back on the power. Triple apex are coming up. This is turn 8 from Istanbul, it's modeled after.
Now, you can carry a lot of speed, but you want to make sure you get down to those apex curves as we get our money's worth out of the Pirelli tires here.
This reminds me of a corner at Le Mans after Indianapolis. Beautiful flow and rhythm into turn 19.
Floating over the apex curve. Make sure you keep those left sides on the candy canes.
Another important corner, getting a launch off here to finish a lap here at Circuit of the Americas.
Don't discount the roll speed. Got to get a good exit. And that is a lap at Circuit of the Americas.
What a lap. It is immense. It is certainly a huge challenge for the drivers and the teams this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Not sure who was smiling more, Parker or Calvin, on that high-speed lap of Circuit of the Americas, but a great view of what it's like to drive around this place. And the overhead shots, too, give you a sense of the scale of this facility. It is truly gargantuan, the Circuit of the Americas, and it's about to play host to the next round of the Fanatec GT Championship. Down there on the grid for us once more is Amanda Busick.
Well, there are big smiles down here, and that's normally in the form of Jeff Burton right there as you look alongside him of Philip Ellis. He was just buckling in his driver to kick off race number 1. Philip Ellis is going to be on the outside of row 1 next to that Ferrari 296. Custodio Toledo has a big smile on his outside looking at his driver as well. But back to Philip Ellis. I talked to him ahead of this race, and he said that this race for me starts right now headed into turn 1. I have to get by this Ferrari if I have a chance of making this alternate strategy work. When you think of the entry into turn 1 from the outside, is there an ideal line, guys?
Well, I think it's so important, Amanda, to get a good clean start. There's multiple lines you can choose up there, but you have to coexist at apex. And with Agostini on the inside, he's going to probably get to the apex first, and then it's really about the crossover coming off. But when you've got good grip, it's going to be really hard for Ellis to make that move. I'm sure Agostini's got the same thought process in terms of wanting to lead in the early laps here and get clean air on the front end of his race car.
Ellis has been an absolute star of GT racing in North America this year. Wins at Daytona and Sebring, podiums in Fanatec GT. Pole position in 2 races already this season, too. And this is a career, Cal, that may not have happened but for a little bit of perseverance on Philip's part.
Yeah, well, he used to watch racing on TV, used to watch Grand Prix racing with his dad, and he said, well, how do I become a race car driver? And he didn't know anyone in the sport, and literally Googled race car teams on the internet, came up with 300 email addresses, sent them offer letters saying, who he was, what he wanted to do. He got an invite from a Spanish team to go over and test a go-kart. He went really quickly. They said, yes, we would love to run you, but we need about 100,000 euros. And he said, I don't have any money. So he had to go back home and reset. But eventually he did get that opportunity, and now he's a full-fledged AMG factory pilot. And boy, he's on a roll, coming off another victory, actually, in GT3 competition just last weekend.
3 wins at IMSA this season, strong runs, all the pole positions, a lot of laps led as well here in Fanatec GT. What a 2024 it has already been for Philip Ellis. I mean, you think about the win in Daytona and Sebring, that's a career for some drivers. He's done it in the span of a couple of months.
Yes, he's got his own highlight package going for just 2024. We're only in May, so lots more to come, I feel.
Cars starting to roll out onto the racetrack now, getting those tires up to temp. Of course, they do come out of tire ovens or tire blankets here in Fanatec GT, so not as much work required, but nevertheless, these drivers hard at work preparing their equipment for the drop of the green flag. Just the 1 formation lap scheduled here at Circuit of the Americas. One of the several onboard shots we have on offer for you here this weekend. This is the brand new entry from DXDT Racing. They debuted the Corvette in SRO competition 2 weeks ago at Sebring. Here at Circuit of the Americas, they add a second car in the Pro class. It'll be started from pole in class by Alec Udell. This is Samantha Tan's view on board with the ST Racing driver, car number 38. This is also the car that will start on the overall pole tomorrow for race number 2. But Samantha Tan, the quickest bronze or bronze star graded driver in qualifying for race 1 earlier today. Well, let's look at how the field will line up for the first of 2 races this weekend. Newcomer Riccardo Agostini on pole. He did it by less than a tenth of a second over Philip Ellis. Then it's the Pro Class pole sitter Alec Udell next to the veteran Bill Auberlen from ST Racing. Row 3, impressive newcomer Luca Mars starts 5th next to Samantha Tan in the 6th spot. 4th row belongs to Adam Adelson and George Kurtz, the reigning Pro-Am champion, alongside Colin Brown. Row number 5 to Will Hardiman of the hometown S's Racing team next to the newcomer Jake Peterson. Ross Schwest starting back in the 11th spot. He'll have Scott Smithson alongside. Then it's Justin Rothberg and Elias Sabo back in the 7th row. And finally, on the 8th row of the grid, Kyle Washington set to start 15th. And we will have to keep our eyes out on Elias Sabo. It looks like he will take that 14th starting position. We understand they had to do a clutch change in advance of this session. There was some concern they might miss pre-grid and have to drop to the back of the field, but it does look like he'll be able to start in that scheduled 14th spot.
That's great, and Andy Lee had a really nice qualifying run this morning, so they're starting to find the pace with the Aston Martin Racing. Talking to the Flying Lizard group, they said, we just got a lot to learn technically with the race car engineering-wise. They're gradually sneaking up on it, and I think they'll be really solid come mid-season and for the latter half of the year as well.
That team really feels like they're in their window mechanically for the first time here this weekend, so let's keep an eye on that Flying Lizard Aston. Starting out back, but as you mentioned, Calvin, Andy Lee very, very quick in qualifying for race 2 earlier today. That could be a car that is set to move forward. Well, it's a couple of Pro-Am class cars starting on the front row, but they've got their pros behind the wheel. Then you get to 3 cars from the Pro class itself, Alec Udell, Bill Auberlen, and Luca Mars. Samantha Tan starting in 6th, the first of the AM-graded drivers in a Pro-Am lineup to take the green flag. Here comes the field out of turn number 20 from the Rova pole position. Riccardo Agostini entering the VP acceleration zone, looking to that flag stand where Adam and Graham Scott are set to wave the green. There it is. We are racing race number 1 here at Circuit of the Americas, and it's a drag race down into turn number 1. Side by side, Agostini has it, but he goes wide. Oh, and Ellis gets tagged by Mars. Everyone scrambles. Adelson goes around 2. It's George Kurtz off into the kitty litter. Looks like Agostini was able to recover. He leads the field at least for the moment despite running long in turn 1.
Yeah, elbows right there early up into the brake zone, and we've got problems there for Luca Mars. Cut down the right front, it looks like, just chaos ensued behind. Agostini got in there super deep. You're hitting a big bump there. He missed the apex, went straight through. Looked like Alice was going to grab the lead, then he got tagged.
Right front damage for Luca Mars in this Racer's Edge team. The car he shares with former IndyCar driver Zach Veach. That will drop them to the back of the pack, and Luca will have to limp that car nearly 4 miles around this mammoth facility here at Circuit of the Americas. In the meantime, the race continues. And it looked like that was Alec Udell in the wars, going side by side. We also see Elias Sabo fighting with Adam Adelson, who's on the recovery drive, but out back languishing with that right front damage. That's where you find Luca Mars.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the tire's actually cut down or whether the bodywork is just getting into it when he turns the wheel and causing that rub. So Agostini, I'm sure he can't believe that he's actually still got the lead of this race after overshooting turn 1. They were trying to outbrave each other. Ellis had already told Amanda that he wanted the lead early. I think Agostini was equally up for the charge as well, and they both got in really deep there into turn 1.
That puts Ellis on the back foot. This is absolutely not what they needed for that strategy, like you talked about there, Calvin. He's already picked his way back through a couple of cars towards the back of the field, but he's got a long, long way to go to get that car the track position they need to make this strategy pay off.
Yeah, key is going to be, does he have any damage or any cut sidewall on the what would be the left rear of that Mercedes, having took that clip from the Racer's Edge Acura there. I think it was just such chaotic. I'm not sure Mars intended to get into him, of course, but they suddenly all slowed down right at the apex. A lot of funny effect. It's so wide there, and you all kind of congregate right at the apex there on the opening lap.
Lap 1 in the books, and it's Riccardo Agostini showing the way, but then it's the pair of ST Racing BMWs running second and third. What we're looking at here is the battle for the 4th spot up the inside, just out the windshield. That is the Corvette of Alec Udell, able to make the pass on Will Hardiman. Looking to follow him through is the newcomer, Jake Peterson, making just his second GT3 start at this level. Couldn't quite make the pass on the hometown team driver, Will Hardiman.
Yeah, Hardiman's having a really good run here. As you mentioned, this is their home track. I'm sure he's got more miles here than anywhere that we run on, so team is really comfortable. Had a bit of a change with personnel here this week, so they're in a little bit of a regroup situation with engineering and team manager and such, but really solid team here based in Austin.
Yeah, the team manager of the last handful of years for Estes Racing is a few hundred miles north of here at Indianapolis, looking after Roman Grosjean, who's trying to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. In the meantime, how about this move from Ross West? He's making some great ground up in the early going. Just made the pass of Kyle Washington, so put that silver Mercedes up a spot, but Washington is looking to fight back down the backstretch. And in the meantime, we look here at the right front of Racer's Edge Motorsports. They're looking at the damage down in the pit lane. Let's see if we can get a bit more from Amanda.
Yeah, you can see them on the right front of that Acura. They're assessing some suspension damage. Luca radioing to the team that the steering is off.
Thanks, Amanda. Side by side here through the S's, Schwest and Washington. They've swapped this spot a couple of times. This is the fight for 7th overall, and it's just off the podium within the class. Just in their rearview mirror, here comes the hard-charging Philip Ellis, who is on his horse at the moment, making his way back up through the field. He's been able to clear a couple more cars on this lap, and he finds himself in the 9th spot. But this is really bad news for them. As you can see, drive-through penalty, incident responsibility, and immediately Philip Ellis makes the call to the pit lane to serve that penalty.
Well, I think they're making the call that kind of Philip Ellis got his elbows out there up into the brake zone for turn 1, got into the side of Agostini, so they're making him avoidable contact, and that's a drive-through penalty. That'll hurt him hard. But we saw Kyle Washington there. He came from 15th on the grid up to P8 overall. Now got past up to P7, and Ross West just got by him for that P7 position. So he's had a brilliant start for GMG Racing.
Yeah, he certainly has, even losing that spot to Schwest, who also has had a really tremendous start to this race. Talked to that team a little bit earlier today. They feel like they're starting to wrap their heads around this car a little bit more. Their first year racing at the GT3 level. We've seen Ross have some good runs in GT America, but now backing that up here in Fanatec GT. Let's go back to the start of the race, Cal. What do you see?
Well, there was already a rub, and so it could be for two things. They may think that there was a rub on the approach with the Ferrari, and then maybe just cut across Luca Mars. It's obviously hurt Luca Mars' day, so two ways that the stewards could be look at that in terms of calling the penalty. I'm not sure if that was the initial bump with the Ferrari or maybe just turning in down on apex and creating the contact with the 93 machine.
I think we can get more on that story down in the pits now with Amanda once more.
Track, but I just got the throat-cutting symbol from the team. It will be day over for the Acura. Too much damage on the toe link.
Tough to see that for the Racer's Edge squad. Looks like the day is done early. Won't get a chance to see Zach Beach, and that's after a really remarkable qualifying job by Luca Mars to get that car in the top 5 on the grid overall.
Justin Rothberg here having a nice rebound after for him, a poor qualifying session here this morning. So he's coming from deep in the pack and has had a really solid run so far here today.
You called it out, Calvin. Who has made up the most ground? Who was the most opportunistic on the start of this race? It is Kyle Washington. The white Porsche e-boost sponsorship on that machine, up 7 places since the start of this race.
He hitched up his beneath underwear that he markets and got on the program here early today. It was a wonderful first couple of laps here, and now he's in the thick of the battle. And Thomas Sargent, his teammate, has been really quick here this weekend, so it bodes well for a GMG result here today.
Under some pressure here, though, from Adam Adelson, who comes through but goes wide. Then Washington comes down across the nose of George Kurtz, who has to back out of it. There might be the faintest of contact between the two, but it looks like they escaped any damage, and after all of that, they run in the same order they were going into turn 1.
It's such a wild approach to that corner, so wide, so many varieties of line, and you all kind of blend right across the apex, and you just have to miss each other, but that was really, really close to another problem. Beautiful sector of the racetrack there through those high-speed S's. Then plunge down the hill. You're doing about 135 miles an hour here. As you get back to that brake pedal, you can see even though it's been resurfaced, it's still pretty bumpy there into the brake zone.
Should note that Riccardo Agostini continues to lead overall by nearly 6 seconds, and that's exactly what AF Corsa needs him to do. They're doing that alternate strategy, starting their pro despite being a Pro-Am lineup. And the goal here is for Agostini to build a massive gap that then Custodio Toledo will nurse the rest of the way.
Washington's in super deep. Can he hold it together? Just missed his braking point a little bit. You can see kind of the gap accelerating between he and Adelson and a similar Porsche right behind him. You can tell that Washington really pushed the brake zone there.
Washington, who has been driving as well this year as we have ever seen him drive. Certainly the single lap pace has been excellent in races this year. Still trying to put some of the full race distances together, and right now he's got his mirrors full of a couple of drivers that raced each other for the Pro-Am Championship last year. They find themselves in different classes this time around. Adelson now moving up to the Pro class after coming up just short in that Pro-Am Championship battle a year ago, up against that crown strike by Riley Mercedes of George Kurtz and Colin Brown.
Well, you see Kyle Washington, he's certainly brave enough. He's certainly got the raw speed. Now it's all about just that finessing those moments, just not missing your braking point by a car length. Make it a foot or two if you make a little mistake, not 8-10 feet.
Here we go
Allison
again.
pushes down up to the inside, makes a nice clean pass into turn 1.
That was much more tame than the last time we saw this. Also sneaking up into this conversation is that Corvette of Scott Smithson. Speaking of which, we have the team car right here now putting some pressure on Bill Oberlin. This is for the lead in the Pro class. Udell made short work of Samantha Tan just a couple of laps ago. As we ride on board with Samantha here, she'll watch as Alec Udell looks to put some pressure on her teammate, Bill Oberlin.
And that is for the Pro class lead. So you got a Pro-Am entry of Agostini leading right now. Bill Oberlin holds down the Pro lead, sitting in P2. We'll share that car with Varun Choksi. Number 28, ST Racing Machine. They've been struggling with the setup here this weekend. They're having to run a very different setup to get the car to work compared to the sister machine of Samantha Tan and Neil Verhagen. But Oberlin being pretty gritty here in the opening laps. Alec Udell rebounding from a little delay there on that opening corner. Fracas is having a nice solid run.
Certainly is his first race in this car. Limited running as well in the build-up to this event, but Tommy Milner, with whom Alec Udell shares that Corvette, was super complimentary of how quickly Alec Udell's been able to get up to speed.
Yeah, his pace looks really good, very similar to what Tommy's doing, who knows this car like the back of his hand, runs with Corvette Racing in the IMSA Championship, but more importantly, he did all of the development with this new GT3 spec Corvette, so he knows the car very well. Alec thrown in at the deep end here, pretty late in the game to get this seat and this opportunity, but he's grasping it with both hands, doing a very solid job.
Championship caliber driver, he won the GT Cup Championship in this paddock back when it was known as Pirelli World Challenge in 2016, then went overseas, and in 2019 actually came away with a Silver Cup championship in GT4 European Series, powered by the Rafa Racing Club. That was a really remarkable result. I believe he was the first ever American to win a championship in GT4 European Series, learning all the tracks brand new, more or less. But now coming back stateside, and has this program for the rest of the season lined up with DXDT Racing.
Board here with Samantha, you can see how much you have to work the throttle and the brake through these S's. Really slows down there through turn 9. Then you leap across the hill, bound over the curbs there, flat out through this left-hander, plunge down the hill. Talk about a lot of resurfacing that's taken place here since last year. There's also going to be some more done, we believe, after this event, deeper into the year, maybe before we get the Grand Prix here once again later this season.
The battle we were watching was for second, third, and fourth on the road, but it's all happening 7.5 seconds behind Riccardo Agostini, who has the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race and just turned in a personal best first sector to boot. He has the lead from the pole position, extending that gap, and that's exactly what they need from him, running the alternate strategy, starting the Pro rather than the Am here in race number 1, when most of the Pro-Am lineups elected to do the opposite.
Seeing another warning for the number 91 car, Philip Ellis. He served that penalty for incident responsibility. He's now got a warning for weaving on the front straightaway, I think, in comparison to Adam Adelson. So he's fighting hard to get back towards the front of this pack, and got a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, Udell is heaping the pressure on here on Bill Oberlin for the pro lead.
Californian Bill Oberlin, a Texan in the form of Alec Udell, and a Canadian in the form of Samantha Tan, currently sitting in second, third, and fourth overall. Front two cars in this train, they're first and second in the Pro class. Samantha Tan is P2 in Pro-Am, but leading on her strategy. Let's not forget, and they've got the very quick Neil Verhagen still to install behind the wheel of that car for the second stint.
Yeah, and she's done a really nice job. She currently sits about 9.5 seconds back of Agostini, and you know Verhagen's pace. He grabbed the pole for tomorrow's race, fastest lap of the weekend, so he's going to be up on the wheel, and then it's going to be all about Toledo, and he, if he does assume the lead of the race when Agostini pits, whether he can hold on and have a similar delta to what Samantha has with her teammate.
Talked about the pressure Udell is putting on Oberlin, and Bill has upped his pace. He just turned in that car's best lap of the race the last time by at a 2:07.1. But to give you an idea of the pace of Agostini, that was 9/10 of a second slower than the race leader.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely flying, of course, and it's not to be unexpected, but when you compare the lap times, Philip Ellis just went fastest actually at a 2:05.7, so he's on the charge from deep in the pack, now up to P13 overall, but some 40 seconds back of the lead right now. But they ran low threes here this morning, so the heat of the day has definitely taken its toll in terms of the performance of the race cars.
It's funny, normally Ellis and Burton, they do not want a yellow in the opening stint, but right now I think they'd take one.
They would compress the field, let Philip Ellis go back to work, but he's having to fight hard. None of these positions are coming easy. Heard a little slide there from someone.
That's Tommy Milner, who will be driving this Corvette in the second half of this race. General Motors factory driver and the driver tab to help develop this car. The first ever official factory GT3 offering from General Motors, available to customers. As he looks to the inside, here comes Alec Udell. Bill Oberlin sees him coming, gives him a wide berth, and they stay side by side through 19. Now the braking zone for turn number 20. This will get tight at apex. They give each other just enough room. Oberlin out wide and over those bumps. This could open the door for Samantha Tan to make it 3 wide. We shall see. Oberlin on the left-hand side of the screen. Udell to the right in the run up to turn number 1.
Yeah, BMW may have just a little bit more straightaway speed, but Alec just holds that track position nice and tidy. Really nice racecraft there by Alec Udell, and great racing with Bill Oberlin as well.
Udell on the home track. He moves to P1 in the Pro class in his first race of the season. Great job by both drivers to give each other just enough racing room. We go on board once again with Samantha Tan here, who has her teammate Bill Oberlin just out the windscreen now.
What a job she's doing. You think about Bill Oberlin's experience now. He'll be celebrating 30 years with BMW by the end of his current driver contract, so just a monster behind the wheel, and Samantha's doing a great job by staying right in his shadow right now.
Bill finished 4th a year ago in the pro class, driving alongside Chandler Hull. Robbie Foley joined them for the Indy 8-hour. Had a pretty good season with a win, 7 podiums, and 1 fastest race lap. But looking for that little bit more. Teamed up with Varun Choksi, and again, that's a team that's elected to do something different strategy-wise, starting Oberlin when normally Choksi this season has been designated as the race 1 starter. In the meantime, we find a battle brewing here between Justin Rothberg in 5th in Pro-Am, George Kurtz in 6th, and Scott Smithson recovering from a bit of a slow start to this event. He's running 6th right now in the 2nd of the Corvettes.
Yeah, Rothberg and Robbie Foley, who shares the car with Justin, coming off a brilliant victory at Sebring, so they're very much in the points right now, just sitting 10 points back in the 3rd position.
Oh, a little bit wide there for Rothberg. George Kurtz sensing weakness, looking around the outside. That big BMW, it's a big footprint. Talked to Will Turner earlier this weekend about the fact that that car is significantly bigger than a number of other GT3 machines, and that makes them have some extra considerations about their pit work.
Woo, look at Smithson there looking down at the inside on George Kurtz. His teammate did it there on Bill Oberlin just a lap ago, so the Corvette must feel really comfortable through that high-speed sweeper.
Certainly looks that way. He's fallen off the back of these two now. Looks like maybe lost that momentum slightly. But I thought Will Turner's point was an interesting one. When it comes to servicing that car, their mechanics have further to run around that car to make a tire change. It matters a little bit less here because of the minimum pit stop delta, but in championships where you can take as little time as possible in the pit lane, that's one extra element that they have to take into account that others do not.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but
Me neither.
yeah, it's certainly a good point that he's making. But as you said, because there's a minimum stop time that is well within getting everything serviced, that doesn't really factor into play here in SRO competition.
Rothberg feeling the heat. Keep in mind, he is new to GT3 racing this year, comes out of Ferrari Challenge. George Kurtz, on the other hand, has been at this now for a considerable amount of time, approaching half a decade at the GT3 level, and is a former, and in fact is the defending Pro-Am class champion. He's also won a championship at the GT3 level in GT America, powered by AWS, the single driver sprint race format, and these two will see each other in that race, the GT America race, a little bit later on today.
Yeah, and this is a team that didn't test here last week like a bundle of the others did, so they're on the back foot a little bit. Spoke to Colin Brown this morning in between his and George's qualifying runs. He said, yeah, we're still working on the car, just keep tweaking on it every time we can. So they're on the back foot, and this championship is really tight. They only have a 2-point lead over Neil Verhagen and Samantha Tan at this point in time.
Had a similar conversation with Colin yesterday, and he agreed that George is maybe driving better today than he ever has, and has a little bit of extra pep in his step because he was forced to miss the GT America weekend at Long Beach, and they know they're on a recovery drive there. There's this little extra urgency in George's driving. I think you can almost see it in the body language of the car right now.
Yeah, you can, and looking forward to the race this afternoon. He didn't qualify well in GT America. Now he looks to the inside on Justin Rothberg, side by side through the apex. Justin has a give it up. George clears him before they get off the exit of the corner.
Outstanding stuff. George kept that momentum up, was able to get to the inside, and by the point they got to the apex, it was a fait accompli. That said, Rothberg's got that BMW in-power, working to the outside, and Kurtz goes deep. Rothberg back to the inside, and following him through is Scott Smithson.
Yeah, I'm not sure if George just got into the ABS there. It takes away a little bit of your braking pressure so you don't lock up those front tires that turn in, and just overshot the corner a little bit, so he's got to dust himself off, regroup, reset, but we've seen George being capable of doing that so many times over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
At the front of the field, let's know. Oh, Rothberg may be slowing slightly, or either that or Smithson just got a great run. Either way, he took a look to the inside and got his nose chopped off, and that brings Kurtz back. I was quickly going to say Samantha Tan has passed Bill Oberlin. That's very interesting. That's for 3rd overall. Report is they might have swapped back, but at any event, we'll keep an eye on that. No, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Looks like they maybe swapped on purpose because Samantha's got some good pace. And they want to keep that car as close to the overall leader. That's the closest car in their class.
Yeah, I spoke to Bill yesterday and first thing this morning about this race car, and he said we're just having to run the race car so different to the other car to get any speed out. Obviously, we can't quite get our heads around it. Running a lot less rear wing in comparison to the 38 machine, and maybe that's just factoring in as we get deeper into this run and the heat of the day. Of course, it's really toasty out there right now.
Change in position, or is it? No, I think this is just a battle again, breaking out here. Smithson in the Corvette, Kurtz in the Mercedes, and Rothberg still leading this freight train in the BMW. This is all happening for positions 8, 9, and 10 overall, and these are all in the same class too. Pro-Am class cars going at it.
Wow, I'll tell you what, that Corvette really carries a ton of speed through turn 18. Really develops a lot more grip through there, and I think that's why we saw Alec Udell make the move on Bill Auberlen. Now we're seeing Smithson thinking about doing a similar move on another BMW there, so it just seems the Corvette works a bit better through that corner than the BMW.
Behind them, Elias Sabo running in 11. And then it's the recovering Phil Ellis. Remember, this car has had to serve a penalty, but because Phil is so quick, this is the CrowdStrike fastest lap award holder for the moment. Ellis has been able to catch back up to the back of this train. He's already passed Hardiman and Washington and has his sights set on Elias Sabo now.
Maximum drive time is 50 minutes. There's no longer a pit window, but it's somewhat regimented as well by not exceeding that. So you're going to see pros like Philip Ellis try and stay out there till the max of that. When you turn that back around, it basically means as soon as you could pit, would be with 51 minutes and 16 seconds on the board, because if you came in then with a transition time down pit lane, that would mean that the driver who then goes out would not exceed that 50-minute stint time.
Kurtz up the inside of Smithson. He has the position for the moment, but Scott's able to cross him back over, and that leads to a drag race down this back straightaway. Looks like Ellis made the pass on Sabo behind, but we've got GM Corvette power up against Mercedes AMG on this nearly kilometer-long run down into the hairpin.
This is some great stuff right here. Smithson is really feeling confident in this Corvette. Had a great run going at Sebring. Made a little critical error going through turn 5 and lost what would have been a podium run. But here comes Kurtz back to the inside. This racetrack, multiple approaches to these corners, just makes for some great racing.
The way that the corners flow into one another, you often see the ability to cross over and make counterattacks. This time, though, Kurtz has that covered off. He has grabbed that spot from Smithson and now has his focus firmly placed on Justin Rothberg just ahead of him.
We get under another little piece of the resurfacing area there through 18 and 19.
Keeping an eye on all the battles all over this racetrack and keeping an eye on the pits for us is Amanda Busick.
We take a look at Bill Auberlen as he just exit turn 1. That's where the issues may have started for him at the start of this race. Bill is saying he's limping this BMW around COTA pretty well, but has something underneath that is dragging. I talked to the team, asked if it was the splitter. They said no, we think that looks good, that there is something underneath that BMW that's making it really hard for Bill to drive. You can actually hear it here on the front stretch. For now, though, that BMW is going to stay on track and hopes to look at it during the driver change.
Yeah, I wonder if there was some debris that flew with the contact in the melee up there and he's run over it, and that can really destroy the underflow and the bodywork, how it works with the aero and giving you downforce.
Let's watch again. Auberlen is in the first of the BMWs.
Watch here the contact with the Acura. Really see him run over anything. Might have been a slight nudge on the right front corner there for Auberlen, but I don't think he really ran over any piece of debris that I could see.
Well, there are, of course, those hefty curbs placed at various points around the track. Could he have maybe straddled one and it knocked something loose underneath the car?
Absolutely. I mean, you're certainly exploring every opportunity to find a straighter line through some of these corners, and if you get too aggressive with it, you can certainly damage the underneath of the race car. But he's feeling something. Amanda is hearing something, and you know, all respect to Samantha Tan, but you wouldn't expect her to be a little bit faster in race trim than Bill Auberlen at this stage of the game, with the experience that Auberlen has behind the wheel of a BMW.
You wouldn't, but let's give a call to Samantha because she is matching Alec Udell lap to lap. The last lap she was within a tenth of him. This lap, it looks like that might be going back the other direction, though, to Udell. Gave up about half a second, but still pretty good pace there for Samantha, running a 2:07 flat. That's only 8/10 off what Agostini is doing out in front.
Yeah, it's been a monster run by her. She's really gaining a lot of confidence. We talk about the fact he's under the tutelage of Nick Johnson, who's a very experienced driver himself, but just ticks every box in terms of making her think about being a pro driver, whether it's behind the wheel, the testing, the data evaluation, every single aspect of the game.
Race Vision powered by AWS. This gives you an idea of which cars are excelling in which circuit, part of the circuit. Sector 1 is the green part of the track, and that belongs to the BMW of Bill Auberlen. He's got the best sector time through there, but on the other two sectors, it's all Phil Ellis in the number 91 Regulator Racing Mercedes, and there he is. He has gotten his way through the battle with Scott Smithson and now has caught George Kurtz.
Wow.
And just like that, looking to the outside here through the S's. This is going to be tight.
Oh, that was beautiful. Just carried in a ton of speed there. Almost got to the flank of George and then just squeezed it back down the inside there as they approach turn 10.
That gives a reprieve, at least for now, to Rothberg, who is under significant pressure from George Kurtz. That will be the next target for Philip Ellis. You can see he's already starting to close in down the back straightaway. Let's talk pit strategy, though. Cal, what do you expect to be the first domino to fall?
Well, I think in about a minute or so is going to be the window of opportunity for anyone who wants to get their AM out of the car and get the pro in and really maximize their drive time to come in. But a lot of it will come down to what they're feeling with the tires. If you get a lot of tire deg in this heat, you don't want to get the pro out there too early and not have any tires to fight with at the end of this one. But so I'm not sure if anyone will leapfrog into the pit lane immediately, but I put that number at 51 minutes and 16 seconds to go in this race. You can see the clock there. We're now right within a minute of that moment of the race.
Ellis through on Rothberg. So up 2 more spots on this lap alone. Swiss driver doing his best to atone for the penalty that he incurred for that lap 1 contact with Luca Mars that has eliminated the 93 Racer's Edge Acura from this race, really before their race ever got started. And just like that, these two have found each other once again. Rothberg in the BMW, Kurtz in the Mercedes, and George is looking awfully threatening at this stage in the stint. Although it could come down to the co-drivers for these two respective drivers if they do indeed make that pit call here before too much longer.
Yeah, you see the BMW just gapped George by about a car length there up the straightaway. So by the time you get to the brake zone, you got to come from a long way back. But we've seen Justin Rothberg just really been immense in terms of withstanding pressure so early in his GT3 career.
We talked about the day that Philip Ellis has had. Started second. At the end of lap 1 was all the way in the back, and it's been a recovery drive ever since. As you can see on our Race Vision powered by AWS, Jeff Burton will take that car over and take it to the finish. At that big podium at Sebring, using this alternate strategy, but it has not worked in their favor today. The only one of note at this stage on that strategy would be Riccardo Agostini, who leads overall, and we'll see very soon if they can do what Regulator Racing has done a couple of times and turn that strategy using a clean race into a good result.
Yeah, and excuse me for my calculation, I'm about 10 minutes off. It's 60 minutes to go, not 50, so we're about 10 minutes away from those early pit stops.
Coming up on 30 minutes into this 90-minute race, we've got another race coming up tomorrow as well for Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS. Rounds 5 and 6 of the championship that started in April out in California at Sonoma Raceway, then made the trip out east to Sebring just a few weeks ago, and here to Circuit of the Americas, which is the unofficial home track of SRO America. A lot of the staff is based here.
Watch like Kurtz here, big move there, big run through that triple apexer. That Corvette is really strong through that sector as well. Kurtz putting the pressure on here, looks to the inside. Rothberg takes it in deep, shallow angle of approach. He'll run out wide there.
Kurtz read that beautifully. He saw that setting up and gets to the inside. Looks like Smithson's got a bit of momentum there too in the Corvette. Again, this is all for class position, but that image right there, that tells you where that BMW is strong, and that's in a straight line down the pit straight where he was able to gap the 04 Mercedes.
Yeah, he's just so poised. I love how Justin's handling this pressure right now. Kurt's to the inside there. That's going to be tight. If you have a touch right there, someone is going for a ride. Fighting it out down through the S's. Kurtz takes a position.
Oh, fantastic stuff by George Kurtz. High commitment in the high-speed S's here at Circuit of the Americas. You don't see too many passes in that section of the track, but credit as well to Rothberg, making sure there was enough room for the two to make it through cleanly.
Smithson's having a good day as well, just sitting there waiting, being patient. Just really, he admitted, I made a little mistake. He was kicking himself after Sebring. He just thinks if he can tidy things up, they've really got a very competitive race car with this new Corvette.
They had a podium run brewing in race 2 there at Sebring, and it all went wrong in the final few laps with a spin from Smithson. Talked to Brian Sellers, his co-driver, about that and said, look, you know, that was shaping up to be a great race for you guys. And Brian said, yep, it was.
Yeah.
But he does feel like Scott's really at home in this car. They're really optimistic about where this could head.
Yeah, I think it's like a little prototype. You talk to the team, they said it's a beautiful piece of engineering. The engineers are fired up about it. The drivers absolutely love it. And Scott Smithson, I had lunch with him yesterday, he just said, I've got to get better. He was being harsh on himself. He knows that they now have the potential to be a regular podium finisher every single weekend.
Your overall leader by 16 seconds, Riccardo Agostini, two-time Italian GT Sprint champion, single-time Italian GT Endurance champion. 2021, he actually won both of those titles. Also a lot of success in single-make racing, both Porsche and Lamborghini, but has found a home in recent years with the AF Corsa operation. He continues to control at the front, but we've got ourselves a battle right here between Rothberg, who just dropped that spot to George Kurtz, and here comes Scott Smithson in that Corvette, which we talked about earlier. He just loves the feel of this car and feels like it suits the way he'd like to drive. He doesn't have to make any compromises when he's behind the wheel.
Kurtz has just taken off. It took him a while to figure out a solution to that puzzle of getting around Rothberg, and in that time, look how much gap he has created. And now Rothberg is having to defend from Smithson, who's trying to do the same thing.
This is the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R, to give it its full name. Brand new car debuting here in 2024. Made its SRO debut globally at Sebring the last time out for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. 5.5 liter power plant, naturally aspirated, of course, a V8.
Flat crank has a really weird vibration at idle, but certainly sings once it's up on song.
The engine in this car is derived from the production Z06, and 70% of the parts in the race engine are in common with the street car engine, giving you some idea that yes, these are thoroughbred race cars when we're talking about GT3, but they do share a lot in common with the road-going models you could buy in a showroom anywhere around the country.
Sabre was having a really nice day. They had that clutch issue after qualifying. The team had to work tremendously hard to get that number 8 Aston Martin Racing Vantage on the grid, but he's hanging tough there. You see him just in the backdrop there, the orange and black number 8.
That team is making big strides with that car. In the meantime, though, Smithson is looking super threatening. This is the part of the track it seems like the Corvette excels relative to the BMW, and if Rothberg slips up, Smithson is there to try and take advantage, looks to the inside, swings back to the outside. Again, the shallow entry for Rothberg, but it didn't quite look like Smithson got the momentum time just right, got balked a little bit on corner exit, and has to settle back in.
I mean, it just seems like Smithson has got so much more speed through 18 and 19, but he's just kind of stymied there with the big BMW right in front of him. They just look so different. It just looks like that Corvette is glued to the ground compared to the BMW that looks like it's up on its haunches a little bit through that series of corners. Through these high-speed S's, you're touching about 140 there, right through the middle there in one of these GT3 cars. Eventually, as you get up into turn 9, you do have to whoa things down. Coming right here, slowing things down finally. eat up a lot of this curve. Just try and open up your hands, straight line through here.
54.5 minutes to go. Smithson stalking Rothberg. Smithson's still pretty new in the development curve to GT3 racing. He's had success at the touring car levels. Last few years driving the Mercedes-AMG GT3. In fact, started the season in that car before this car was ready. This program was ready to begin. First two races at Sonoma, actually quite promising for Smithson and Sellers in that Mercedes before making the jump to the Corvette.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, because I would say for the last couple of years with the Mercedes, they really struggled to get the ideal setup on it, and then suddenly they came out of the box this year with a really good race car. Right as they made the announcement, guess what, we're switching chassis when we get to Sebring, so had to be a bit of a sweet decision to let go of a car that they suddenly got their head around. But meanwhile, there's so much potential in this new Corvette.
That is on full display here today. Let's check in on this battle. A couple of drivers having really good runs in the mix here. Certainly Ross Schwest comes to mind. This is the best we've seen him run in Fanatec GT this year in his first season in the championship. Does have some damage, it appears, to the grille of that Mercedes, but it probably is superficial. Aaron Povolato is the co-driver. Schwest Povolato Racing is the team. They're coming on leaps and bounds as they come to grips with the GT3 platform. It's a big, big step coming from the GT4 ranks. Philip Ellis continues his charge back up through the field as well. He's got Adam Adelson firmly in the crosshairs, but let's learn more about Ross Schwest now with Amanda.
Yeah, Ryan, you were talking about kind of the start to their year as they switch over to this GT3 format. They come off of that top 5 finish at Sebring to come into this weekend, and I was talking to Ross just about his growth from the GT4 platform into GT3, and he said it's really been trying to break his old habits. He gets used to where braking points are in the GT4, how it operates around a track. He's actually seen some success in GT4 here at COTA, but he said just learning what a thrill it is to drive this GT3 machinery, how challenging it is in learning a new threshold of power.
Yeah, he's done a great job. He's already seen victory lane in GT America competition. Unfortunately, they lost that win due to being a little bit underweight, I think it was, in the opening rounds of the championship. So he's got up on the wheel really quickly. Yes, you have to throw out your old driver's notebook in terms of braking points. It's an immense car with tons of downforce, big braking potential, and obviously a lot more horsepower. But I think he's done a really solid job so far this year.
And for the crew, the level of complexity, the number of things you can change and tinker with, it's orders of magnitude more complex than a GT4 car as Ellis knifes to the inside of Adelson and goes up one more spot, and his charge through the field continues.
So impressive. He has the fastest lap of the race at a 2:05.5. He trimmed that a little bit a couple of laps ago from his previous best, so he's still on the charge here with clean air. He is the fastest man on the racetrack.
The man behind him is Adelson, currently third in the pro class. Elliott Skier will take that car over next. They were joined last year at the Indy 8 Hour by Callum Eilott, who right now is attempting to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. And last weekend, as we see our first pit caller come in, won overall in the World Endurance Championship at Spa. And Adelson pointed out to me that their run at Indy was Callum's first ever run in a Porsche. So he and Elliott said, we'll take 50-60% of the credit, teaching him everything he needs to know about driving a Porsche for that win in the WEC.
Callum had a pretty nice win there, didn't he? Winning that Porsche hybrid machine, taking the first customer victory. That was really cool to see him get that result.
And special, too, because that's at the site of the track where he lost his good friend Antoine Hubert a couple of years ago, and he dedicated that win to Antoine. But we're a bit off piste here. Let's get back to the battle at hand. This is Philip Ellis to the inside of Ross Schwest. Adelson has designs on following him through and does rather easily.
Yeah, I wonder if Schwest got an issue there. He just got gobbled up down the end of that straightaway, didn't he?
I wonder, though, if maybe he was lifting to let Ellis through. And
well, he's anticipating a pit stop. I mean, you'd expect they'd want to get Aaron Palvaledo in that machine as early as possible. We're beneath that number. We said 51.16 on the clock to go in this race was the point they had come in. We're now below that, so we're seeing all of the AM runners hit pit lane.
This is as expected for the Pro-Am cars that started their less experienced driver to make that pit stop early, get the pro in the car for as long as possible. On the flip side of that strategy coin, Agostini and AF Corsa, they'll stay out as long as they possibly can. Same with Regulator Racing and Philip Ellis. And he'll need to make hay while the sun is shining here. He should have some clean track to work with most of the competition coming into the pits, as we can see right here. This is DXDT Racing going to work.
Jake Peterson coming in. He's had a really nice solid run aboard the RS1 Porsche that swept the weekend at Sebring with Hinman and Pompelli behind the wheel.
And it is Trent Hidman who gets in. This is a car that's now in the Pro-Am class. Those wins at Sebring were in a Pro Class entry for RS1, and what was a historic weekend for the team as they got wins at the GT3 and GT4 level. I think 3 wins in the same day, 3 class wins in the same day in one of those days at Sebring. First time the team has ever been able to do that.
His elevation change up here in a turn 1 is just a monster. 11 degrees incline, over 100 feet of elevation change. And the GT3 cars, right before they hit the brake pedal, are touching about 148 miles an hour.
This is Flying Lizard. Got the excellent engineering work of Owen Hayes helping to dial this car in as they step back into the GT3 ranks with Elias Sabo and Andy Lee. Hometown team S's Racing running as a Pro-Am entry this weekend. That was not the original plan. It was supposed to be after Sonoma, where they ran as a Pro-Am. It was supposed to be an M-Class entry the rest of the way as they switched the driver lineup, exchanging Alan Metney for Adam Carroll. But the team elected, with no competition in the AM-Class, to remain in Pro-Am, and we thank them for it. Just bolsters that field a little bit.
Bit of a slow stop for the George Kurtz to Colin Brown. Just looking at the data right now, about 4 seconds outside of the minimum stop time. So not a great start for that group, who are leading the Pro-Am Championship, coming in by a couple of points. And that could go away this evening, because certainly the 38 car is having a great day.
And the team car, the 28, is coming in, Bill Oberlin, and I wonder if this has to do with that dragging sensation we've heard them report. You would think they would want to keep Oberlin out as long as possible with the GT3 rookie, Varun Choksi, as the co-driver, but they elect to bring Oberlin in somewhere in the middle of where they could, the de facto window of where they could make that pit stop.
Yeah, he could have run another 3 laps or so, but he's obviously struggling with the race car. We saw that with his pace, and don't see anything dragging as the car's up on the jacks right there. We can't really see the left front. Looks like the diffuser may have been moving around a little bit as they are putting on that rear wheel. But any little aero knock can certainly throw off the balance of the race car.
Pit stops complete for ST Racing and Schwez Povaledo Racing. They'll blend back in. Keep an eye, though, on the top 2 that still OS pit stops. These are the 2 cars that started their pros in that Pro-Am field, Agostini and Ellis. It's working brilliantly for AF Corsa and Agostini, but that's going to put a lot of pressure on Custodio Toledo, making his first ever Fanatec GT World Challenge America start. And he's going to inherit the lead.
There.
Yeah, that is Choksi.
These tires come out of the blankets, out of the ovens, but they're not right at their operating temperature, and Varun very committed there through the high-speed S's, very fast hands there. If it's that big from outside of the car, you know your arms and elbows inside the cockpit.
That does not look comfortable. And maybe that has something to do with what Bill Oberlin was complaining about. Let's not forget, it could be more than just tires that aren't fully up to temperature.
I just wonder if the rear diffuser is maybe a little bit loose. There it is.
Yep, that's
now
it.
you can finally see it. I saw something when they put on the the rear wheel, something move on the diffuser. You can see it's broken down there, and that's probably what Bill was feeling. And that makes the losing the seal, so essentially it makes the downforce very inconsistent, which can make it a nightmare to drive through these high-speed corners.
Can get a close shot tails away of this BMW. You'll see that diffuser left side especially, driver's left, flapping in the breeze, and that's a sign that something has come loose. Wonder if maybe it was dislodged in the contact in turn one. There was a melee turn one, lap one, in case you're just joining us. This is interesting. The overall leader is in some lap traffic here, has not pitted, but this will hurt potentially depending on who he ends up around and their pace. This could hurt his potential lap times, and right now their strategy is dependent on Ricciardo going as fast as possible for as long as possible.
Well, you got to factor in how much time is he going to lose in traffic compared to he being a much more experienced driver. The speed that he'll have over his teammate, what is the delta there? I'd expect Toledo to be 2 to 3 seconds slower than the pace that we've been seeing from Agostini so far today. So if it's mild traffic, just keep him out there, maximize his stint time as much as possible. He can go one more lap. I don't think he can go two more, one more lap, and then he'll be peeling in the pit lane. He has to be on pit lane, or the last drivers to stay out there like Ellis and he have to be on pit lane before the clock sits at 40 minutes to go in this race.
That won't be any problem as long as they pit at the end of this lap, at least for this car. Certainly not cutting it close, but taking as much advantage of that situation as they can. In the meantime, here's Tommy Milner. This is the car that we expect will ultimately cycle through to the overall lead. He'll have to make his way most likely through some Pro-Am traffic, but this is the first car in line of those that have pitted. He is the leader in the Pro class as well, and is not under any particular pressure at this stage, giving this car a really nice run on debut.
Yeah, and he could in fact win overall by the time everything cycles through here and we get the AMs on board, both this machine, the 91 Regulator Racing Mercedes, and the AF Corsa Ferrari.
Okay, Philip Ellis, this team didn't feel like they could chance trying to go around one more time, so they're going to go ahead and make the stop here. Jeff Burton will climb aboard. Drive-through penalty coming. Pit lane speed violation to the 19 car. That's the S's racing car. Alan Metney currently driving it. But they're down in 14th at the moment, so wanted to update folks on what might be going on with them. Let's keep an eye, though. We talk about the potential of an overall win for this Corvette, but Verhagen is flying, as we're used to saying. He just did a 2:05.8. His last lap, though, was a 2:05.5. Milner's been in the low 2:06s to high 2:05, so there appears to be a little extra pace in that BMW. We shall see.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a fun little battle here for the overall win, I think, between Milner and Verhagen. Different class cars, so I'm not sure how racy they want to get. And finally, Agostini hits pit lane.
There wasn't enough time to go around once again, so it's a pretty easy call for AF Corsa, one of the premier teams, not just in GT racing these days, but also running the 499P prototype in the World Endurance Championship on behalf of Ferrari. They'll go and make that driver swap to the Brazilian Custodio Toledo.
Battle for P2 in the Pro class right here. Elliott Skier putting the pressure on big time on Maroon Shocks, who's dealing with that split rear diffuser here. Downforce is not going to be super consistent. He's going to struggle with this race car. Feinted to the inside, and then he loses marks a little bit. Skier thought about taking another bite at the cherry there, but elected to be patient. Long way to go in this race.
Pit stop just about complete. P0's already on the car. The fuel is in. It's just the driver change they're waiting for. Back
Minimum
to this
stop
fight.
time is 76 seconds from pit in to pit out, so that's all controlled. They have a race logic box on the dash that indicates to the driver when you're down to green. There's also a green light, as I understand it, that comes on to indicate to the driver. So it's also monitored by the team, and if all goes awry, they'll certainly give you the shout on the radio, but it's really down to the driver to watch that little unit on top of the dash to know when they have to release out of the pit box.
Here comes Elliott Skier. This is the battle for second in the pro class. All of this happening a good distance behind Tommy Milner, the leader in the class. Oh, Choxy with the twitch. That is a wounded BMW he has to nurse for another 39 minutes. He looks awfully vulnerable. And Jeff Burton giving chase behind, doing a pretty nice job hanging tough with these guys.
Yeah, it really is. And Jeff Burton has had so much pressure this year with that reverse strategy that they've employed for the first 4 rounds of this championship. But he's withstood the challenge. And I think he's enjoying life learning from Philip Ellis this year.
Pit stop for AF Corsa was slow. It did look like they were struggling with the driver exchange, and they came in considerably over the minimum time.
9 seconds loss on pit lane. So that lead that Agostini had really worked hard to develop has been diminished somewhat by that slow driver exchange.
Frankly, I find it a little bit surprising, although it is their first start together here. They've been campaigning that car in Le Mans Cup this season, and actually did a couple of races in Italian GT last year too. So it's not like this is the first time they've had to do that, plus all the practice, of course. But that said, there's nothing quite like doing the driver change in the line of fire in the pit lane. It's not exactly like when you practice it in the garage.
I think there's diffuser issue on Skier's car as well as I look at that tails away.
Yep, you're right. There certainly is.
So 2 wounded cars there battling it out for P2 in the pro class.
And Jeff Burton not too far behind either in the regulator racing Mercedes that Philip Ellis has starred in. That car still holds the Crown Strike fastest lap of the race thanks to Philip Ellis. Skier closing in on Choxy. Both of these drivers with blunted weapons. They'll go side by side here.
Watch Skier here dive down to the inside. You could see that one setting up. And now Choxy returns the favor.
That was outstanding. That's what this stadium section lends itself to, crossing over, trading positions multiple times over the span of just a couple of corners.
Just brilliant racing, and all of the time Jeff Burton is inching ever closer to this battle on the racetrack. For pro class position, Jeff Burton in Pro-Am, of course.
Update at the front, Toledo's lead over Milner for the overall lead, not for class position, just 5.7 seconds because of that slow pit stop. Neil Verhagen starting to close in a little bit too on Milner, and Hidman putting in some good laps as well over the past few laps. He runs in the 4th spot overall. Toledo would be a pass 4 position should he get there. In the meantime, this continues to be a great battle here for class position. This is second in the pro class. Choxy has it, and Skier is trying to pry it away.
Yeah, I tell you what, that diffuser, you can see it really flapping in the breeze now. I think that situation is getting worse for Varun, so he's doing a really nice job. Skier dealing with a wounded race car as well, as we mentioned, so it's allowing Burton to close in on both of them.
And for Burton, this would not be for class position, but what a great opportunity for him to sit and watch and learn from 2 pretty quick drivers, Skier in particular, with considerable experience over the last few years at the GT3 level. He looks to the inside again. Choxy sees him coming. They go door to door at the exit of the hairpin, and they'll stay door to door.
Choxy just clears him. That BMW is shown to have a little bit more straightaway speed, inching over there. Then he has to give it up, so he's probably going to have to maintain that track position on the right-hand side of the racetrack. Skier's going to hold tough here down the middle of the road.
This is the run into the downhill braking zone for turn 12. Skier's got it, and Choxy punts him just that little bit. That dislodges the diffuser just that much more, but Skier was able to withstand the challenge. He got that 2nd spot.
Really curious to see here, once we get timing and scoring, to cycle through what sort of pace Custodio Toledo has at the front end of this field. There you see it. That's the lead. Toledo leads in Pro-Am. That's Tommy Milner. Then comes Neil Verhagen, who's on the charge.
Milner was about 4 seconds faster that last time by. It's a 1.8 second gap, so Milner should be there before the halfway mark of this lap. With 35 minutes to go, battle for the overall lead starting to brew. Toledo's got it for now, but the hard-charging Tommy Milner is closing in.
Yeah, I think the way this is going to shape up, Milner should clear Toledo in the next lap or 2. Then Verhagen will do the same thing, I believe. And then it's really going to be about how much does Verhagen want that overall win here today. Does he go after Tommy Milner to get the overall win. Admittedly, both of those drivers in separate classes.
That becomes the interesting calculus, doesn't it? How much does the overall win mean? Here is the overall lead changing hands as Milner gets to the inside of Toledo. And Milner makes quick work of the Brazilian and takes the top spot away with 34 minutes to go. Look at the damage at the back of the 120. This is big because that could lead potentially to the meatball flag and a mandatory trip to the pit lane.
Yeah, and they're the leaders in the pro class coming into this weekend, have a 20-point lead over the 28 machine. So this is huge if they do get the black flag and have to bring that car in.
Well, it looks like the bodywork has come off the car, but now the diffuser is just barely hanging on. It got rocked loose up over the curb there a moment ago. That Porsche will not be fun to drive.
Yeah, I think that's the diffuser we're looking at. It kind of has that heat shield wrap on top of us. When it's coming out from behind, it's suddenly sitting there in the breeze.
It's hanging on by a thread.
Yes, skier would love that to disappear, or probably make the handling at least consistent at least. And the other problem is that gets underneath a tire. It can certainly be a big problem.
Normally, nose-to-tail contact like we saw between Choxy and Skier wouldn't get a second look from the stewards, but given the potential implications of this, is there anything that race control can do? Let's look at how this all came to be.
It's down into turn 12. There's that little bump. So it was already loose, and then Choxy gives him a little nudge. And as you mentioned at the time, Ryan, is that enough to tear that diffuser off? Well, it certainly gave it a hit. And now he's really struggling there. Still behind him. I've got a feeling they're going to have to black flag him at some point, because that is a real problem if that comes up in front of a following competitor. Can't believe it's hanging on there.
It's been a lap and a half now. But it stays affixed, at least for the moment, to that Porsche 911 GT3R of Elliott Skier, who runs second in the pro class.
There it goes.
And there it goes.
It's on the racetrack. I'm not sure it cleared the complete racetrack there. It's just off to the right-hand side, I believe. That would throw the cat amongst the pigeons if we have to go full course yellow.
Sure would. That would be very bad news for AF Corsa. Verhagen, by the way, has made the pass on Agostini, and that is for the lead in the Pro-Am class. Hidman will be the next one to take a shot at, I said Agostini, I meant Toledo.
Yeah, and then the question is that gap between Milner and Verhagen has stayed right at that low 3-second mark. They're running very similar lap times. How much does Verhagen want the overall win, or is he happy just to sit there with the Pro-Am lead?
Speaking of Custodio Toledo, there he is, now sitting second in Pro-Am, but third place is looming larger and larger by the lap, indeed by the corner, with Trent Hidman starting to close in. And RS1 Porsche, let's give a call to Jake Peterson. What an impressive first stint he had. Kept his nose clean amid the melee in turn 1 on lap 1. Marched his way forward, showed good pace. And now Hidman is in a good position to challenge at least for a podium, if not potentially the class win.
Yeah, get back to Jake Peterson. He's such a cool young man, just 23 years old, musician, brings his guitar. He was teasing his teammate Trent Hidman yesterday about what sort of instrument Trent could play. He said nothing. He said, can you dance even? He said, no, I'm not really good at that either.
On board here with Trent as he closes in on Custodio Toledo. This is for second in Pro-Am. Should have a shot at him, if not in this corner. I think Trent would like to get this done now, but he will have to wait. Try to get the run out of 11.
Yeah, Toledo just closed the door there, but a little bit shallow on the entry, and consequently no exit speed coming off of turn 11.
Well, you mentioned Jake Peterson. Grew up riding dirt bikes. In fact, the family's got an off-road racing background. His father raced trophy trucks at Baja and other off-road events, but road racing is what got Jake's attention. He's got a big program this year, racing single-make Porsches as well as GT4 Porsches, and then here, of course, in Fanatec GT, not for the full season, but for the balance of the championship.
I think he may have to skip one more race this year, he said.
That's my understanding.
Flash, yeah.
And
But
a
his
great
dad loves being here. His dad sits on the sideline, just loves watching his young son learn his craft. He's come a long ways. We saw him at the Indy 8 Hour last year, did a really solid job there, and impressive young man, wonderful personality.
He's got a phenomenal guy to learn from, too, in Trent Hidman, who in a short amount of time has amassed a great deal of experience and has proven to be a race winner just about every level he has competed at over the past few seasons. Inside of 30 minutes to go, we look here at Varun Choksi, who continues to run 6th overall, 3rd in class, in a car that has been wounded pretty much from the opening lap. Bill Oberlin nursed this car as well as he could, but because of the damage, could not maintain the pace of Riccardo Agostini in the early going. And Choksi has now been tasked with trying to bring that car home to the finish.
They've had 3 podiums so far this year, a couple of P2s and a P3. Looks like they're on board for another podium, but what a difference not getting that penalty call on the 120 with that bodywork being loose there for Elliott Skier, because they are the championship leaders. So for Choksi and for Oberlin, they're still going to be on a deficit to the leader at the end of this race.
In position further down the order, Robbie Foley on the last lap just made up 1 spot around Aaron Povoleto. He's up to 10th now.
And up front, Tommy Milner is now gapped Verhagen by another second. So I think Verhagen's just kind of cruising. He just wants these Pro-Am max points here and is willing to take the championship lead here tonight, not worry about the overall win, would be my guess.
Still a long way to go. But how special would this be for DXDT Racing, for GM, for Corvette? Well, Tommy Milner's got that car exactly where they want it. In the meantime, this car has been damaged from the opening lap, and Bill Oberlin, who drove it in the opening stint, is standing by with Amanda.
Yeah, and Bill just told me off camera that he feels like this BMW is just internally damaged, and that goes back to prior to this, just this race. But you guys are battling that diffuser issue from lap 1 here in this race. How challenging is it to limp that BMW around COTA?
Well, a diffuser is a big part of how we make our downforce, so it's not helping. It wasn't terrible, and the strategy we were doing was working, and I think we spent a little bit too much time in the pit lane, and somehow that gap closed up and didn't work out. Varun was having a crazy battle with the 120 car. We're giving it all we can. We just got to figure out this car. For some reason, we can't make it go quite as good as the other BMWs. We're trying all we can. I'm not sure what it is, but I want to say hello to Shanna, Shanna's mom. Hope you're feeling better.
He was right about that pit stop.
Yeah, 6 seconds outside the minimum, so that's a big blow to take there when you've been working hard, and it is so frustrating when you're a driver, you're out there fighting tooth and nail for hundreds and tenths of a second, and then when it goes wrong on the pit lane, whether it's, problem here, that's Jeff Burton, quick spin in the middle of the S's.
Jeff had been 7th overall. He's got to get that car turned back around to try to rejoin. This is Robbie Foley, who's been coming back through the field. There is Burton back facing the right direction, but that has cost him dearly. Looks like Andy Lee is about to come through next, so that would mean Burton sits currently in the 12th spot, at least for the moment. There's Sargent, there's Burton, there's Lee.
Foley's actually been flying. He just ran a 205.7 a couple of laps ago, but there's a handful of cars here. We saw fastest lap of the race by Philip Ellis at a 205.5 earlier in this race, but for example, Foley's run a 205.7. You got Skier there just breaking into the 205 bracket probably before that diffuser issue. And then you've got Trent Hidman at 205.6, Verhagen at a 205.5, Milner at a 205.5. So a lot of really equally matched race cars in this field, but they've just been separated by the dynamic of the race so far.
Looks like 3 cars in the 205.5 bracket. The fastest is still the Regulator Racing Mercedes. Back in that opening stint, Philip Ellis still holds the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race at 205.510, but that's only by a fraction of a second, about 300ths over Neil Verhagen. Actually 4 cars, it appears, in that 205, 5 cars in that 205 bracket. So gives you some idea of how competitive this field is. And we're talking about a Corvette, a BMW, a Porsche, and a Mercedes in that group. So pretty evenly balanced, it would appear, between those manufacturers. This is Foley.
Been a big week for Turner Motorsport. They broke the record of Team Schnitzer for the amount of entries for a BMW race car. It was at 556. They broke it at 557 last weekend, and they've got 4 starts that they're going to have here this weekend, so they're going to blow that number out even further.
Oh boy, here we go. Colin Brown feeling the heat from Brian Sellers. Saw this battle in the opening stint, except it was George Kurtz and Scott Smithson hammer and tong, and now it's up to their co-drivers to try and settle this. And in the meantime, they're running down Varun Choksi here too. Not for class position, let's keep in mind. This is for 4th and 5th in the Pro-Am ranks, but they've got that Pro Class car ahead of them that could have a part to play.
Yeah, and so could Robbie Foley there. He's the last car that we're looking at, tails away, coming off at turn 11. So he's been running really fast race laps, but Sellers has definitely got some speed there. But fastest lap so far, Colin Brown has it over Brian Sellers just by a 1/10 of a second. But these Corvettes have looked really solid here today, both in the hands of Sellers and Smithson, along with Milner and Udell, who currently lead this race.
It's so good to see. There was a lot of excitement around this program, but it was announced at the Indy 8-hour last October. We had to wait a little bit because it wasn't quite ready to go at the start of the year at Sonoma. We knew that going in. That was always part of the plan. But everyone, I think, was just sitting there licking their chops at the prospect of having a Corvette. And then the news came there would be a second one starting here this weekend, and that got everyone just that little bit more excited.
Yeah, they tested 3 drivers for this seat alongside Tommy Milner in the Sister 63 car. We're looking at the 08 there, Brian Sellers, and Alec Udell did a really solid job. They're really impressed with what he brought to the table in terms of his feedback along with his speed. So he's been selected for that prize seat alongside Tommy Milner. But yeah, this team's so excited about these race cars. We said before, the engineering squad just feels that the cars are beautiful to work with. They're more like a prototype with a GT skin over the top of them, as we mentioned at the last round at Sebring on debut. So really solid race car, and it's early days. It's all about what the potential is in this race car once they fully get to grips with it.
So this group has caught Choksi. Brown will want to make quick work of that BMW if he can. In the meantime, Verhagen has been chipping away at Milner for the overall lead. He was 6/10 quicker the last time by. Hinman was even faster, although only marginally so. So those 3 are starting to condense, much like these 3 here. So the front car in this train is Choksi. That's a Pro Class car. Then you get 3 Pro-Am cars running relatively close to each other with Brown, Sellers, and just a little bit further back that BMW of Foley. Race Vision powered by AWS Circuit Performance. We'll see how that's changed since earlier in the going. Interesting to me that the fastest lap, at least until recently, had been held by, it still is held by Ellis, but he doesn't show up as having a single fastest sector around this place.
No, you see Sector 1 there is held by a BMW. It was Bill Auberlin early in the race in another BMW. Now it's got Robbie Foley named to that. The 29, then the 38 car of Neil Verhagen as Sector 2. Then the 85 of Trent Hinman, the Porsche, through the tight twisty stuff to finish off the lap through the stadium sector. But with Varun Choksi kind of taking the air off the nose of Colin Brown a little bit in terms of his pace, that's allowed Robbie Foley to join this party in a hurry.
Choksi certainly is the cork in the bottle right now, and he's got 3 hungry Pro-Am class cars sitting right behind him. This is not going to affect the result in any way for Choksi. He's pretty much a lock for the podium at this stage, with the only Pro Class car behind him out of the race. That's Luca Mars, who was eliminated turn 1, lap 1. Did limp around to complete 1 lap, but then retired the car. However, a lot is at stake here between Brown and Sellers and Foley. These are all cars that have designs, at least, on contending for a Pro-Am championship. And in the case of the CrowdStrike by Riley car, and I would say the Turner car too, they have a very realistic chance of being in the mix when we get to Indianapolis.
Oh, for sure. The Ufo car has the lead, only by 2 points over the 38 of Hagen, that leads in class right now. But for Robbie Foley, this is a big moment potentially in the season. If he can get around Colin Brown, first he's got to deal with Brian Sellers, but if he can get to that CrowdStrike entry, that would be huge. They're only 10 points out of that championship lead that the CrowdStrike car has.
Under 20 minutes to go. Race 1 of the weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. It's 4 cars running line astern down the long back straightaway, 1 kilometer in length. And here we go. The battle is on. Sellers feeling the pressure. Saw a little bit of body work come off one of the cars, maybe some contact. Here comes Foley. He gets to the outside of Sellers and sweeps across his bow. He's already got that position locked in.
Well, look at Sellers into the brake zone. Wow, did he take it in there deep? Foley a little bit offline. It has been resurfaced there, so you're off the rubbered in line a little bit. So it allowed Sellers to really take it in deep. But yeah, there was a big hole being punched by that 3-car train, and Foley just gobbled that up and went to the inside of Sellers, who went on the defense down that back straightaway.
Wow. That was a display of power from the BMW around the outside of the Corvette. Good fight back there from Sellers, but couldn't quite get back in front of the BMW driver. Keep in mind, Sellers has plenty of experience in other championships driving a BMW M4 GT3, so he knows its strengths and weaknesses extremely well. But for the moment, he has no recourse but to follow in line in that Chevy Corvette.
Yeah, that's a great point. He ran a BMW last weekend in a different championship, so he knows the car very well. But he's really enjoying this Corvette. He realized that the engineering that Pratt & Miller bring to this program is an extremely high level. And he said that's why Corvette racing has been so strong over the last couple of decades.
All right, step 1 complete for Robbie Foley. You talked about how this could be the fulcrum moment in the championship for Turner Motorsports where things could turn, but that's contingent on getting around the points leader. The 04 car just out the windscreen. It's very much in play, and maybe he's getting just that little bit of an assist from a fellow BMW driver, Choxy, up the road.
Choxy's doing a great job. Let's not forget he's got a wounded race car. Oberlin said the car's not quite right. We saw the diffuser damage, and he's got pros sitting behind him right now. And he's not really losing out too much. Colin Brown can't figure out a way by him just yet.
First year of...
Here comes Foley. Big run here. Got to get the power down off of turn 11. Colin Brown's probably going to have to go defensive here down this back straightaway. He's getting the toe, though. He's getting the draft. Now Choxy gives the indicator. I think he's going to let this battle go through.
Choxy lets them play through, but the battle continues and looks like the battle last lap, except trade the Corvette for a Mercedes. Foley to the outside of Kurtz in the Mercedes, or excuse me, Colin Brown in the Mercedes. And Colin Brown is able to keep the BMW at bay for the moment. Oh, little bumper
touch
there.
Woo, this is great racing. Sellers wishes he's a little bit closer. He'd be firing it down to the inside right now, but he lost a couple of car lengths in that exchange.
And don't sleep on Sellers either. He's still in the mix. Choxy has let him come through. He settles back in behind this pair. Brown continues to show the way in this battle pack, but this is for the... What is this for? This is for 4th, 5th, and 6th within the Pro-Am ranks.
Yeah, it's not for a podium. Toledo's doing enough, I feel, just to hang on to that podium, even though we've got 16 minutes to go in this motor race. We'll get a reset here and see how far they are back from Toledo. So Colin Brown sits 16 seconds back, 16 minutes to go. It's not out of the question.
It's not. A lot of it will have to do with how much defensive driving he's going to have to do vis-a-vis this charging BMW, and as well, Brian Sellers in the Corvette. Should also mention Tommy Milner in the sister Corvette has answered the bell. Verhagen and Hidman had started to reel him in, but he has answered back with fast laps. Here comes Sellers looking to the inside of Foley. Boy, that would have been very aggressive. It cost them both dearly. Look how much that Colin Brown has been able to build the gap just because those two were nearly 2 abreast.
Wow, the yin and the yang of balance of performance. We know the BMW's got a bit more straightaway speed, but that Corvette just fires it through some of these corners. We've seen it be such a delta in terms of the performance in some sectors of this racetrack. Here we see Elliott Skier making a move, overall position. That's for P4 around Toledo. Toledo's really responded. He's been running laps in the 208 range. I thought he'd be about 2 to 3 seconds off his teammate. That's exactly what he's running. And he may just have enough pace to hang on to that podium spot with Brown, Foley, and Sellers giving chase.
A lot of pressure on his shoulders in his first ever start in the series. The car that started from the overall pole thanks to Riccardo Agostini. Brown, Foley, Sellers. These three have raced against one another a lot here in North America over the past few seasons. They know each other well.
Watch this corner here. This is where the Corvette is really good through this high-speed sweep, but just seems to hug the road through there and absolutely fly through that little sector.
Oh, a lot of curve there for Sellers. That car looked super unloaded there for a moment. Came smashing back down to the concrete. Didn't seem to slow it down at all. He continues to put that power down out of turn 20. Tell you what, all of a sudden Colin Brown doesn't look so vulnerable anymore. Instead, it's this battle here between Foley and Sellers.
Yeah, he's just got his head down. He just laid a lap down, which is within a couple of hundredths of his fastest lap of the race. So Colin Brown has pace deep into this stint. They're starting to find the sweet spot on that crowd strike with Riley Mercedes.
Inside of 15 minutes to go. Race leader overall and in the pro class, Tommy Milner. Got this started with Alec Udell. Did a great job from the class pole and turned it over to Milner in a position to fight for the overall and class lead. Let's learn a little bit more about how the day is going for DXDT with Amanda.
Well, it's actually more challenging than these two are making it. Look, they've actually had radio communication issues all day. It started under Alec Udell. He wasn't able to communicate with the team. He actually came in to the pit with a good old-fashioned pit board signaling him to make his way in for the driver change. Same thing happening for Tommy Milner. But just looking at the crew and everyone around here, everyone's a bit tense, hoping that this moment does happen. But as Aaron Gahagan just said to me, it's never easy and it's not over.
No, it is not. Has to be special for Erin to be looking over this car because that's her brother behind the wheel. It's been a long time since they have worked together at the same team. You got to go all the way back to PTG Racing, which of course was owned by their father, Tommy Sr.
That was back in 2005, I think was the last time they worked together, but knew each other well. Certainly Erin was keeping tabs on the development of the car through her brother. As you mentioned, Tommy Milner did all of the work on this new Chevy Corvette, and he was obviously giving good feedback because the team made the decision to select these cars to go chase a championship.
Long-time viewers of this championship, or more specifically SRO America more generally, might remember that Tom Milner, the elder, Tommy's father, he helped to run that Panos team when they were running in Pirelli GT4 America a number of years ago. Quite a character and well known within sports car circles here stateside. Has been a part of this game for many, many years, and we suspect watching at home. Hope you're enjoying the show, Tom.
Yeah, Tom is quite the personality, wonderful team owner. Hates drivers, he'll tell you that. But he loves his kid, and Tommy's doing a great job, had a wonderful career.
Sometimes I wasn't sure if he hated inquiring journalists and pit reporters more than drivers, but someone I could always go to get the pulse of the paddock and get an unvarnished opinion.
He'd always give you a good opinion of the other German manufacturers as well. He had certain names for them, which we won't get into.
No, instead, we'll watch as the sister car continues in its pursuit of Robbie Foley. Really interesting, and you know, it brings to mind the way the first stint ended, because Justin Rothberg had a really strong start, but it did seem like he faded late. So I wonder if that might be what we're seeing here for Foley. Could he have used up the material just a little bit and left himself vulnerable here in the final 10 minutes or so? We'll leave Calvin to ponder that for a moment, and while we do, let's check in once more with Amanda.
And Ryan, as I came over for this interview with Erin Gahagan, she said, you know, there's still a long time to go, but you are tucked away back here watching. How are you processing all this right now, Erin?
I'm excited for the team. Our new partnership with Corvette has been fantastic, and we've worked really hard. But I'm also really happy for my brother, since he's the one who helped develop this car. So I think the win for him is even a bigger excitement than it is for the team.
I was talking to one of the Corvette guys. He said there might be a little bit of a party tonight. How true is that statement?
Well, I don't know. We'll see when the race is over, and I'll let you know.
I told you guys it's got to come down to it. She's not going to give it away just yet.
She does a great job, just so much experience, just rock steady. I mean, she is the backbone of any race team that she's involved with, and I love seeing her as part of our paddock, and it will be a proud moment, be a special moment, but as she says, there's still a long way to go in this race, 9 minutes to go, but Tommy seems to be in control at the front end of this field.
Super well respected within the paddock, and putting together a remarkable day with Milner out in front and Sellers having a solid outing, all things considered. It was a frantic start to the race. Let's not forget, Scott Smithson did well to get through the carnage at the very beginning. And Sellers finds himself right in the thick of the Pro-Am battle. This Pro-Am field is incredibly tight this year too, so a top 5 is nothing to sniff at.
No, it's a really solid run. Brian's fastest lap is only a couple of tenths off Tommy, who's leading this race in the pro class. So he's had a great performance. Foley's tough to handle. He's got a little bit more straightaway speed than the Corvette, it seems, but certainly Colin Brown has been up to that challenge. I thought Foley was going to maybe take a nibble at the CrowdStrike racing entry, but Colin Brown has just found a little something late in the going. Just laid down his fastest lap of the race. Colin Brown just landed 2:05.528, which is only 100th of a second off the fastest lap of this race. So Colin Brown is getting quicker and quicker as we get deeper into this race, which is really a testimony to these Pirelli P0s in the heat of the day, Ryan. To be turning those sort of lap times at the end is incredible.
Well, for AF Corsa, they've got to be kicking themselves on that pit stop where they gave away 9 seconds just in the pits, running long on that stop, because without that, a podium would almost be a sure thing.
Yeah, and that's why Colin Brown has not rested on his laurels, right? He's digging deep here because we thought it was going to be close for Toledo to hang on to that Pro-Am battle. Now we're swinging in the other direction. You can see it on screen. It's basically down to 3 seconds across the stripe.
Yeah, you can see it visually. There is the third place car in the class, that Ferrari 296 GT3, and here is the fourth place car giving chase, Colin Brown. Again, remember, AF Corsa did the alternate strategy. They started their pro driver in the Pro-Am lineup in the opening stint. Ricardo Agostini did a great job scampering away from the field, although he did have a moment into turn 1, lest we forget. He ran deep into the brakes in the braking zone there on the first lap, and it looked like he might lose the lead, but the chaos that erupted behind him was exactly what he needed to atone for that error. And then he sprinted away, built a big, big gap that Custodio Toledo has been tasked with maintaining. And right now it runs in third, but that could change very, very quickly, because even though we have only 7 minutes to go, Colin Brown is closing with each successive lap.
Yeah, he is, and also Foley and Sellers have got a chance to get to that Ferrari as well before the checkered flag is displayed here at the end of this race. So he's got to keep his head down. He did a really nice job, improved his lap times into the low 2:08 range, but that last one was about a second off his previous best, not the car's, his previous best, and that's allowed all of these other Pro-Am runners to get right with him now.
Toledo and Brown now in the same camera shot. This looks inevitable now. Toledo will bend that car to the right into this triple apex right-hander. Brown continues to close in, doesn't want to waste too much time trying to get this move made. Sets it up for the crossover, comes underneath, and he'll be in firm position to the inside into the braking zone for turn 20. That is cut and dry for Colin Brown, who's now up onto the podium for CrowdStrike by Riley, and the damage might not yet be done for Custodio Toledo because Robbie Foley is starting to close in, and Brian Sellers is in his wake with 5.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, Toledo's got to do everything he can just to dig deep. I think it's an ominous sign of the pace of this Turner Motorsports BMW, and Sellers right behind him in the Chevy Corvette. But Toledo, I mean, hats off to him. That's a big ask, and he's really driven brilliantly here this afternoon. But with his experience level in GT3 competition, it was always going to be a tall order.
Quite frankly, without the slow pit stop, a podium was within their grasp on debut. I think they can like that and take that moving forward. We'll see what the future holds. We'll see what tomorrow holds, because their strategy is the opposite tomorrow. We can talk more about that when race 2 gets underway, because here in race 1, it's Foley on the attack. This is for 4th in class. Foley to the inside and book it. Robbie Foley up one more spot.
Yeah, and Sellers just going to key on a good clean exit here off turn 11. But still, he'll have enjoyed this run, Custodio. Really solid weekend for AF Corsa to come back, grab the pole position here this morning, lead the majority of this race. Really, really solid performance by everyone on board that group.
Here comes Sellers. Toledo puts up a token fight, but ultimately he's forced to relinquish the spot. That is 5th in class that has just changed hands, and Sellers now sets off once more in pursuit of Robbie Foley, who was able to pry that spot away from Sellers just a handful of laps ago, but hasn't been able to pull away since then. Go back to the front of the field, and Tommy Milner. This would be poetic for the man who did the lion's share of the work developing this race car on behalf of General Motors, on behalf of Pratt & Miller, if he could deliver the first win globally for the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R. And you think about the fact that Pratt & Miller, the factory team, they've run a couple of these cars at IMSA this year. They've yet to taste victory. There have been customer teams, AWA over there, also TF Sport in the World Endurance Championship running Corvettes, yet to get to victory lane. If DXDT could get it done, what a feather in the cap that would be.
It really is, and for Tommy Milner, he hasn't been doing a ton of racing of late. Last year, he just filled the endurance role over in the IMSA Championship. The year before that, he ran in WEC, which is not a bundle of races, only 8 races in their championship. So he says, I miss racing. It's been fun to develop this race car.
This is Aaron Povoleto off the track. And if he is beached, that could bring out the yellow flag, and then it would just, I don't think so either. Let's see what happened.
Went really deep up into the brake zone there.
He was fighting for position with Varun Choksi. That was for 9th overall. Tough way for this one to end, because Ross West, I think, had his best race of the year in that opening stint, in Fanatec GT at least. But looks like this one will not end the way that Schwest Povoleto Racing had drawn up. It's going to be very close whether or not the white flag will be shown here. Keep in mind, it's not required for the white flag to be shown, and in fact, we did not see it wave there, so it's just going to come down to how much time is on the clock, if any, when Tommy Milner comes around the next time by, whether or not this is the final lap.
Well, we'll see how much poise he has there. I think if he slows his pace by about a second and a half, he can still win this race and get the checkered flag a lap early.
But remember Amanda's report, they've had radio issues. So there's a chance he doesn't totally know the situation.
Yep, for sure. Also, the stewards look like they made the decision to keep this race green, handle the car stricken up there in turn 1 with the local yellow. Samantha Tan smiling, big day for them. Championship lead here potentially if they hold on to this win.
And what a performance from Samantha too. She was the fastest qualifying AM-class car, or not AM-class car, but sorry, AM-graded driver, I guess, in a Pro-Am lineup. She qualified 3rd in class, did a wonderful job in that opening stint, and then Neil Verhagen has done exactly what we expect him to do.
Yeah, he's done Neil-type things, which is just drive the wheels off that BMW. So super impressive young man. They're a great tandem. They work well together, got great chemistry. I think they have a lot of fun, and they're a real championship threat right now.
And another great story, sitting 3rd on the road, 2nd in Pro-Am, Trent Hinman at RS1. Jake Peterson, could he score a podium in his first ever 90-minute race in Fanatec GT World Challenge America? Did run the 8-hour last year, but in terms of a traditional SRO America race, This is basically the debut, and it could result in a podium finish. He's just about a half a lap away, depending on the timing of when Milner crosses the line.
Yeah, Hinman's been absolutely flying. He's actually caught Verhagen a little bit, even though I feel Neil is controlling that gap.
Tommy Milner, potentially just a couple of quarters to go, down under 10 seconds left in the race. It's going to be super, super close when they get to that finish line. We wait to see, and indeed the checkered flag waves. Tommy Milner, Alec Udell, and DXDT Racing give Chevrolet the first win globally for the Corvette Z06 GT3R. ST Racing's Neil Verhagen and Samantha Tan, they get the win in the Pro-Am class. A podium once more for RS1, Trent Hinman and Jake Peterson. What a great performance, second in class and third overall. And there is the 120 Wright Motorsports car. Elliott Skier brings that damaged car home, fourth overall. And it's another podium for Skier and Adelson and the Wright Motorsports gang.
Incredible there, and Colin Brown rounds out the Pro-Am podium for Skier. He ran a lap time, 2:06 flat with no rear diffuser. Amazing performance.
Foley holds off Sellers in the final analysis, less than 0.4 of a second separating those two. They finished 6th and 7th on the road. What a battle they had in the final 20 minutes of this race. Toledo across the line, he'll finish 8th overall. All things considered, pretty solid day for AF Corsa. What might have been, though, if not for the slow pit stop, they could have had a podium here today. Varun Choksi nurses his wounded car home to 9th, and Tom Sargent completes the top 10 overall for GMG in the car that Kyle Washington started. It's a 10th place result for Tom and Kyle here in race number 1. What a story for DXDT, though.
Yeah, really, really cool. Great to get that first win for Corvette with this new race car. So, feather in their cap. They were so excited to announce this program, as you mentioned, at the Indy 8 Hour last year. They finally got the car on the racetrack and delivering very early in the campaign.
David Askew, the team owner, has done a lot of driving for his own team over the last few years, but he stepped back last year in part to try and bring this program on board. He continues outside the cockpit now, overseeing the operation that he has built. They have invested tremendously over the years, and now reaping the rewards with not just a win, but an overall win, and the first win globally for Chevrolet and their Corvette Z06 GT3R. It belongs to DXDT Racing, Tommy Milner, and Alec Udell. Samantha Tan and Neil Verhagen, my goodness. They have been the dynamic duo over really the last year, going back to the second half of the season 1 year ago into the start of this 2024 campaign. They get a win ahead of Peterson and Hinman, Adelson and Skier, Kurtz and Brown, the top 5 overall. If you go down to 9th, you'll find the final member of the podium in the pro class, Oberlin and Choksi. Tough day for them, but still third place points. Admittedly in just a 4-car field, but still they'll take that and move forward as they try to diagnose what's been ailing them all season long.
Yeah, certainly a bit of a head scratcher that they have to go in a different direction with their setup to get the car balanced in comparison to the sister machine. So they'll work hard. We talk about a break coming up after the round here tomorrow. Before we hit VIR, maybe they can go testing and get things sorted out a little bit.
Yeah, big break coming up after this weekend in deference to the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa that will be taking place in Belgium. A number of these teams, including CrowdStrike by Riley, will be taking part in that wonderful event later on this year. Well, Greg Gill, President and CEO of SRO America. This is the hometown for Greg, the home track for Greg, and Amanda, he's got to like what he saw today.
Oh, and now he is the owner of the first Corvette win right here in the SRO paddock in Austin, Texas, in your hometown. Greg, you said you can't even imagine what you just saw. Describe this moment for you in the series.
Absolutely goosebumps. It is so amazing. We're so stoked. We love having GM being part of this, but to have Tommy Milner bring it home with his sister here, what a great honor. We're excited about it. We wish him best of luck for more.
Talk about just what a day for SRO Global, Valentino Rossi winning. What is just the feeling of the series globally?
To see that happen at Mazzano, which is definitely a home track for him, and then to see this here, SRO, best GT racing in the world.
Congratulations, Greg. And guys, the celebrations are just getting started down here. You'll see Tommy Milner take those gloves off. His helmet's going to come off as well. We spoke during the broadcast. Both Alec and he raced this entire race without radio communications to the team, so you can only imagine the challenges that presented to both of these drivers. But what will be the ultimate reward here is the first win for Corvette right here in Austin, Texas at COTA. And Tommy, I talked to your sister prior to the end of the race. You can imagine just how nervous but full of pride she was. And she said she was so excited for you and for this work of putting this together. Seeing that checkered flag at a Corvette was the experience.
It's a lot of emotions, obviously. First win for this new Corvette CO6 GT3R, which is very special. Had a lot of driving in this car last year, not much racing, so excited to get the first win. And for my family, for my sister, brother-in-law, has been working with DXTT for many years now. For Dave as well, for Dave Askew, they've been trying really hard the last couple of years to improve themselves, improve the team. So pretty special for me to get that win for him.
I can tell you the team was celebrating. David Askew was taking high fives and fist pumps as well. But as your tenure of a Corvette driver, where does this one rate?
Oh, it's big. You know, every time you have a new car, you really want it to work well.
Nice.
Hey, buddy.
Nice job, buddy.
Thank you. Good job. So yeah, this car is a new venture for Corvette Racing with customer car racing. It means a lot to show what this car is capable of. We know what these cars are capable of in the past, and to show it now in the present what this car can do, it means a lot to me.
We will chase an interview with Alec O'Dell as he makes his way over to victory lane as well. But first up next for the BMW drivers, Samantha Tan and Neil Verhagen. And Samantha, I talked to you yesterday, and you were saying just what difficult weekend it was at this location last year. When you look at your success and measure your success from one year after another, where are you at the moment?
Oh my God, it's been a lot of progress over the year, and it's been a lot to attribute a lot of it to working with Neil and working with John over the past couple of years. I mean, it's been such a journey, and was digging deep today for sure.
Neil, you told me you wanted your co-driver to be as comfortable as she could in that car yesterday. How proud are you of her?
Yeah, I think she executed absolutely perfectly today. She stayed out of trouble in turn one. There was a lot of carnage in turn one today. She kept it clean, gave me the car in one piece, and in a good position as well too. So made my life pretty easy today. So thank you. Hopefully I can do the same for her tomorrow.
Look at the parity of the drivers in your class. How tough is it out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of great drivers here. I mean, we have factory drivers from most manufacturers here. So to have the level of drivers here, and yeah, a lot of good driver pairings in the Pro-Am as well too. George Kurtz and Colin Brown, they drive together all the time. They're definitely always a contender. Unfortunately today they got a little unfortunate in turn one, but I'm sure they'll be there tomorrow.
Congratulations to ST Racing on the win here at COTA. Neil did tell me that he hopes that he can get ST Racing their first GT3 championship. And now that the co-driver and the guy that started on pole in the pro category, Alec, yeah, I know you guys are just taking in this moment. I saw you guys celebrating on pit lane. You knew you guys were going to be successful. Did you think it would be this soon?
I hoped it would be this soon. Obviously, whenever you're starting a new program, there's all kinds of unknowns. First time Tommy and I have driven together, first time that I've raced with the team, and so everything has really gelled very nicely, which I think speaks to the caliber of the team, caliber of the Corvette, and just us being able to bring it all together is super satisfying, especially for me at home. It's a great feeling. So it takes a little bit of pressure off, and now we continue to focus forward and make improvements where we can.
And Alec, just quickly, what was it like without the radio communications to the team?
Very peaceful. No, it was great. Yeah, I think we just had a small issue there. I'm not sure what it was, but that's why it's nice that we have the board that can be put over the wall. And so it's really just you cycle into your zone and get into a good rhythm and just pay attention to everything that's going on around you on track. So like I said, peaceful, but again, it's nice to have the communication when we can, but great job from the DXTT team and the Corvette CO6. I'm super pumped and just great stint by Tommy, and super excited for the win here.
Well, Ryan, as Corvette did tease, there might be a party tonight happen around this place.
I would imagine there would be. Well-deserved for sure, but you can't party too much because you do it again tomorrow.
Don't need a hangover for the race tomorrow.
Race 1 highlights, and it was a wild run into turn number 1. First of all, Agostini goes wide. Looked like he was going to lose the lead until Philip Ellis spun off of the nose of Luca Mars. Ultimately, Ellis was hit with a drive-through penalty. For that, Luca Mars had his race end. This is Ellis serving that penalty on the opening lap. It was a comeback drive from there for Ellis and Jeff Burton. So many battles throughout the field. This is Ellis coming back from that penalty, getting to the inside of George Kurtz and picking up another position. AF Corsa ran as long as they could with Riccardo Agostini. He ultimately pitted from the overall lead. It was a long pit stop, though, and that cost them, as we will see, a potential chance at a podium on debut. Good battle right here between Wright Motorsports and ST Racing. It ended with a little bit of contact here as Choxy got into the back of Elliott Skier, knocked that diffuser loose. For a moment, it looked like that could ruin the race for the Wright Motorsports team, but that diffuser did come off on its own. It was able to make its way off the racing line, and we stayed green. In the meantime, we had, in the second half of the race, Colin Brown start to charge his way forward. But the story of the day was DXDT Racing. Tommy Milner and Alec Udell delivering the first global win for this brand new GT3 Corvette. ST Racing gets the win in Pro-Am. And the celebration will get underway now at Circuit of the Americas at the podium. A lot of fans thronging down there to help these drivers celebrate. What a day. So many good stories. Here's the Pro-Am podium, starting with third place, Colin Brown and George Kurtz. Look, this did not look like a day on which they were going to stand on the podium, but a great recovery to end up third. This is how you win a championship.
It really is. They were on the back foot with the setup. They didn't test like a bunch of the other teams did here last week, so they've been struggling to get a grip with the race car. And then, you know, Colin Brown looked really vulnerable. I thought Foley was going to get around him and maybe take some points out of that championship lead that they had coming in, but Colin just found some pace and just got the hammer down and took off and chased down the Ferrari and grabs that final podium spot. I think they'll be quite satisfied with the day, but the team that's really on song there, the ST Racing duo of Hagen and Tan, they look immense right now. Samantha doing a great job by really laying the table for Neil to bring it home this afternoon.
Samantha and Neil, along with Kurtz and Brown, they are the stars of the present in the Pro-Am class, but maybe a star of the future was born today. Jake Peterson had a great opening stint in his first ever 90-minute Fanatec GT start. We know how good Trent Hinman is coming into this weekend. The only question mark for RS1 is how quickly could Jake come to grips with the GT3 car, and early returns are quite positive.
Really good, and the team is excellent. They swept the weekend at Sebring. Hinman had a monster stint. He nearly caught Neil Verhagen there at the end, so he had a great run going. And I think Peterson's just going to get quicker and quicker as he gains experience. But big championship swing, 10-point swing here today. So it means from a 2-point deficit, the duo of Verhagen and Tam will have an 8-point lead here heading into tomorrow's race.
You can see the champagne spray, the celebration up on the podium, and the distribution of the trophies, of course. In the Pro-Am class, solid racing in that class, and I love the ability to split the strategy. We didn't see it play out quite as dramatically as I thought we might, with two cars taking the alternate strategy today. The Ellis car getting delayed by the penalty early on kind of took that away, but nevertheless, it does give us some really interesting storylines to keep an eye on in Race 1. And in Race 2, it'll be different with those cars lagging behind early, but watching them charge back through the field will be compelling.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to watch that in the second half of tomorrow, but the start tomorrow with some of these pros on board is going to be sensational because the times were so close there. A bundle of cars separated by a mere tenth of a second on race pace here today.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that plays out in race number 2. And, you know, as we saw today, contact on track or a penalty or a yellow can have everything to do with how that strategy plays out. It didn't work for Regulator Racing today, but there are plenty of ways this could fall into their hands or into AF Corsa's hands for that matter tomorrow. And we'll walk you through all those strategies, of course, once that race gets underway. Speaking of which, we expect we'll be on air here local time right around 2 o'clock. That's Central U.S. time. You can catch it on all the same streaming outlets. Hope you join us for that, whether it's on GT World on YouTube or the live Twitch show. Shout out to Ash Vandelay, who is hosting once more here this weekend. Love having her along for the ride, helping to spread the gospel of GT3 racing, SRO style, as we welcome the Podium drivers up onto the rostrum from the pro ranks. Oberlin and Choxy, a little bit resigned, I think it's safe to say, on the left-hand side. Even Adelson and Skier, second place at this point. They're kind of used to more. I'm waiting for the next group to see the celebration, and I think it's going to be a big one with Alec Udell, this long-awaited opportunity to race in the top class and show exactly what he's made of, alongside the veteran who's been so anxious to get back to racing more regularly, Tommy Milner. Both of them are hungry, and that was on full display.
It was great for young Alec Udell to finally get an opportunity at this level with this type of program. He's grabbed just a beautiful race today in terms of his pole this morning, and then a wonderful opening stint. Stayed out of trouble, got delayed a little bit, and there's David Askew. He's got to be proud of the whole group there and grabbing that first Corvette global victory.
Told that story earlier about his step out of the cockpit and into more of a management role. I know he aspires to get back to driving again, but this has to be so gratifying to know that the sacrifice he took to oversee this program has paid off.
It takes a lot of work, a lot of resources are involved. Got a great group, just excellent. I was down there during qualifying, seeing the engineering table there. The brains behind the scene is top-notch.
Bringing in some big names from the Pratt & Miller side of things to help out on the engineering with this car. A lot of support, of course, from GM and Pratt & Miller, but this is customer racing. This is a customer team, and for them to deliver that first win is absolutely massive for DXDT Racing and for Corvette. That's a wrap for us in race number 1. We'll be back tomorrow, 2 o'clock local time for race 2 from COTA.